How's it going, folks? Brian Cusco here at Triple B, and I'm with my buddy Anthony Zavala of Grand Daddy Herps. There will be a link down in the description where you can find his channel. Anthony was actually the very first person to comment on my very first YouTube video ever. I'll put it here. I'll put this right here.
You're watching Triple B TV.
Yeah.
Yep. It was at the Bamboo, I believe.
Yeah, I think.
I saw the first couple, but I remember the Bamboo video stood out because it was a nice, solid white background, and it was just, and those at the time were still extremely valuable, so it was like impressive. So yeah.
Yeah, and I remember the comment was like, oh, well, nice snake, welcome to YouTube life, something like that. And that was before,
Probably.
I think that was before I remember how to reply to I actually just went and looked at it today.
Nice.
And just to look, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know how to like comments or reply to comments because there's no reply or like on it.
Yeah, and it was way different back then too.
Yeah, but I remember I was thinking too today, like, what it would have been like if somebody else had commented first and been like, what are you doing to the snake in that box, you idiot? Like, whoa, something like that instead of
Would
like.
it just killed your motivation?
Yeah, oh man, this sucks. I'm not gonna do that again.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, it was a little bit different back then. That was kind of the thing to do, is just try to find new people and just kind of bring them into the circle. And that way we can all just kind of, hang out and chat. So it was definitely a little bit, and it's still a lot like that, but it wasn't as mainstream as I think it kind of is now. So it was a little bit more of like smaller groups, everybody knew everybody type of thing. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I remember there were a lot of people that would comment like Mark balls out ball pythons and stuff. Like,
it's good. A lot of them are still around too.
Yeah. I've seen some of Mark's videos. He's always hashing out clutches and stuff. And yeah, I need to get out there and see that guy, man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So how did you? I've never even talked to you about this, but how did you get into keeping?
So I can take you back to the beginning of how I liked reptiles, or I can just do the keeping, whatever you prefer.
Both.
Okay. So the whole thing with reptiles started with I was in my grandparents' front yard, and I just so happened to look on their lawn, and there was a little tortoise walking on their grass. And I had to be maybe 4 or 5 years old.
A tortoise?
Yeah, it was, or turtle, I don't know. I couldn't tell you at the time, because so I saw it, and I went and I picked it up, and I brought it in the backyard, and I was playing with it. And then I noticed that my grandparents had an old fish tank on the side of the house. So I was like, oh, that's where I'm going to keep it, right? And so I had it for like 2 days. And keep in mind, my grandmother is terrified of anything reptile. Any lizard, I mean, you would hear her scream, go screaming, go running in the house, call me out to go get it and get rid of it, right? And so I did that, and then like 2 days later, I go and it's gone. And I'm like, what the heck? It was in the tank, now it's not. So later on, I found out she didn't want it there. So the parents got rid of it. I don't know what they did, and to this day, they're like, it wasn't me, but no, they got rid of it. So that's where I was kind of like, reptiles are awesome, and we're boys, we like dinosaurs, we had the bed sheets like you mentioned. Yeah, I had it all. Okay. And then later on, 7th grade comes around, one of my best friends brings a wild-caught gopher snake into science class, and I see him feed it, and just that whole experience was just like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so I go home, Mom, I want a snake. Not happening. Nope, no way, not happening. So I'm at one of the local swap meets, and this Asian guy is selling, chickens, bunnies, and garter snakes, and a bunch of other little things, right? And my grandma, I'm her firstborn, anything for me, right? So I'm like, Grandma, I really want a snake. And she's like, yeah? She's like, well, pick one out. I'm like, my mom won't let me have it. She's like, I don't care what your mom says, right? So I show up, I got a garter snake, right? And my mom just has to deal with it, right? So over time, she saw I cared for it, and then, she just kind of, it was what it was, and it didn't bother her anymore.
He's got this beautiful garter snake we're going to pull out too and show on this episode after we're done talking here. It's beautiful, gorgeous.
So quick story, that thing, our escape artist. So it got out a few times, and one of the best things I remember is I'm in my room just chilling. I knew the snake got out, didn't tell my mom, right? I would find it because I found it before. And she just screams like bloody murder. The snake got up in her bed. Got up in her bed and woke her up, and Anthony, swoop, threw it in the tank, shut it. So that was one of my most memorable experiences having with the garter snake. So fast forward, high school happens, life happens, college, all that good stuff. I'm not keeping any reptiles. And then finally, I'm like I want another reptile. And for some reason, bearded dragon popped out to me. And so I went and I got like a little basic, normal looking bearded dragon. It was like a citrus pastel. I started watching YouTube videos on how to care for it, right? And then one thing led to another. 2 bearded dragons, 3 bearded dragons, 4 bearded dragons. Now I'm breeding them. And so I had my first reptile breeding experience with bearded dragons. Then I realized these things are expensive to maintain. Light bulbs, food, these things eat nonstop. But at the same time, I ended up getting a ball python, just a normal ball python, right? Same thing, research, boom, 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 and then I see the Bumblebee. And then it's just like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I had seen pictures of like the clown and the pied and the albinos from when I was younger, and I had one of the books from like Tracy Barker. So I always knew that those were there, but the Bumblebee was just mind blown, right? So one day I'm going into Triple L Reptile in Escondido, California, and I'm going to get a mouse for my ball python. And I just so happened to glance over at this tank and call it fate, right? And I see Bumblebee ball python, and I'm like, and I go and I check it out, and I still have that male actually here.
Really?
I have him here.
Dude, let's
bring him out. So this is the original Bumblebee that started it all. So I think he was like $400 at the time as a little baby, but I had to have it, right? And so got him, and so now, of course, like everybody, I've got the male, I've got the female, and so my goal is to eventually raise them up to breed. And then next thing you know, I get the pastel. Keep in mind, when I got into ball pythons, basic single genes were still $400, $500, $600. So I did it the old school, old fashioned way, invest, invest, invest. So one thing led to another, and that's just kind of, that's how I am where I am today. And this guy played a huge part, and he's had a few clutches for me over the years. And he's kind of like my mascot. He's a snake that he'll never leave. And so right now he's roughly about 8 years old. And for a Bumblebee, there's hardly any brown on him. He's looking really good.
Yeah, speaking of bumblebees without brown, you gotta pull out that girl, dude.
Yeah.
Let's show her next.
Yep. You want me to go ahead and grab her now?
Yeah, go for
Okay.
it. I thought this was appropriate to bring out because, I mean, well, first when I pulled it open, it was like, that's a really good looking bumblebee right there. Like, it shows that, and then plus this is one of the original combos, right, that really caught people's attention like it caught yours.
Absolutely. And that's actually a video I've been meaning to do. I just haven't done it. Is about bumblebee ball pythons. I will always love hatching a bumblebee. There's nothing like hatching a bumblebee ball python. Like seriously, just the pattern when they're first born, they're almost white. There's almost no yellow. Then after each shed, you see all the yellows come in the different patterns. And as far as wobble goes, she's one that like I've never seen her express the wobble, not even with feeding. So I got real lucky with her. I actually hatched her from a killer bee female, which I still have as well. It was a mystic to a killer bee. I thought maybe she had mystic, but she didn't. What's nice is I put a super pastel yellow belly het puzzle from Sean Bradley to her, and I hatched out some just killer looking babies, which I think we're gonna show you. I don't know if in this video or the next video.
Oh yeah, we're gonna show them. We're gonna show them right here after this girl. Yeah.
Okay. This clutch was from a super pastel yellow belly 100% het puzzle bred to that bumblebee that we just showed you. She's a nice A+ quality example of the bumblebee. And I got really lucky. So far reconfirmed 5 females and one that we're almost positive is a male.
With real short ones.
Yeah. And so my goal was sometimes, hard work pays off. So I'm holding back pos hets. Hopefully I'll get lucky. Even if they don't prove, there's still some exceptional quality animals. So they'll still produce some amazing stuff with plants that I could have if they're not het puzzles. So we're starting off with the one that's in shed, and then
always got to have one snake in shed.
Always
showing off snakes.
Never fails. And then this is my female. So she's a pastel yellow belly pos het puzzle. She's got some exceptional
belly going on.
Yeah, I mean just the colors and all that pattern on the side. She's got a real narrow head pattern. I think that could be puzzle influence, we'll see. And she's got these jagged eye stripes. Generally, the blushing on the head goes all the way out to the eye stripes, but this one's kind of narrow. Even if you compare it to the one that we think's the boy, he's got a wider head stripe, and he's darker too. He's got some nice oranges, some nice belly pattern. The camera won't be able to get it, but you can see the yellow belly bleeding through the belly.
Oh, it will.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
nice. And then actually one of my favorites in the clutch, they're all kind of my favorites, right? It's an almost no white bumblebee, or bumblebelly, excuse me. Definitely has yellow belly.
Yeah, that was the one that struck me when you first pulled it out. I was like, whew.
Yeah. I mean, the oranges and the yellows and the very reduced side pattern all the way down. Actually, the mother is the same exact way. And a lot of the babies kind of came out really reduced towards the end of the tail. You can see all the...
something to be said for by breeding for quality like that,
absolutely.
man.
A lot of it's luck, you know, too. But definitely, if you got the eye for the animals, you know, like Gavin from Balls to You says, buy with your eyes. You know.
You definitely do that. I've watched the snakes that you end up picking up and unboxing. And
I won't pull the trigger and say that this is a killer belly, but I'm leaning that it is. And it's got these really nice silvers down its spine. Really nice silvers. Nice busy pattern. And this is the sister, which is also, I'm leaning more that this one is definitely killer belly, just because of all the broken pattern towards the end of the tail and all the busyness, but who knows. Like I was telling Brian before, you know, we turned the camera on, there's 3 different pastel genes at play. So you're going to get an even greater variable there. So them being killer bee, they can contain 2 different.
That'd be interesting to see. I'd like to check back in with you down the line once they prove out and see if one of them turned out to be yellow belly or not.
I've got 5 chances. There's 5 females, so if the odds are in my favor, at least one of them will make me happy, that's for sure. Awesome. I think Puzzle is an awesome gene. I invested in it a little over 2 years ago, kind of before the rush. So now I'm kind of like, I need to speed it up, man. Everyone's starting to catch up.
Now that Sean's
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so as I mentioned before, garter snakes are what got me into reptiles for the most part. I guess keeping and whatnot. It was the first snake I ever owned. Fell in love with it. It was pretty cool. There wasn't a whole lot of information on them back then. I had to find it all in books if I was lucky. A lot of people used to feed them guppies, including myself. You would buy them from like Petco or PetSmart. Turns out they're not the best for the snakes because they can carry a small, like
parasite.
Yeah, it was something that's like I don't know how to say it, but it's a little like I don't know chemical that they carry where. Over time, if you feed them that over like a long time, it's kind of toxic for them.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. So there are different types of fish you can feed them, like silver sides. Those are actually really good for them.
But
generally,
they're definitely a fish-eating snake.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They'll eat anything. In the wild, you know, they'll eat lizards, they'll eat frogs.
Pretty impressive little tongue.
They actually don't really eat rodents, but in captivity, there's a lot of protein in rodents, so when they get a little bit bigger, we always switch them over to rodents. It's an overall better diet, consistent diet, and their poop doesn't smell as bad on rodents. When you feed them fish, their poop is horrible.
I can imagine that.
And they don't poop. They don't poop like whole poop. It's really watered down. It's white. It's black. It's really nasty.
It's fish poop.
Yeah, and you got to change their bedding pretty frequently. So if you're one of those where you can't clean that often, this isn't the snake for you because it poops often. But they're really intelligent. They're really fun to watch. If you set these up in an enclosure, it'll follow you and it'll bite at the tank thinking that you're gonna feed it. Once you pick them up, they're real docile though, and they are rear fanged. But their bites are, if they chew on you, kind of like a hognose, the equivalent of like a bee sting. But she's never tried to bite me.
And they're even less so than hognose, right? Hognose
Absolutely.
are probably a little more venomous than.
Yeah, and the hognoses tend to get a beefier head too. But yeah, awesome snake. If you want a snake that's a little bit more fun, that's not pet rock as they say, these guys are a lot of fun.
Well, hey, dude.
Yeah.
We finally made it happen.
Yeah. I'm glad. Long overdue, huh?
Yeah, long overdue. I also wanted to do this one. It's funny, like I make it like halfway across the country, but I can't make it halfway down the state.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, you know, because it's a drive instead of a flight.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. I'm just glad that I happened to be down in the area. So yeah.
Appreciate you coming over, man.
Yeah, dude.
Yep. I know I haven't been too active lately, and it's nice to let people see the collection.
Thing to remember. So I was sitting there talking, do like half an interview and look down and be like, ah, God.
Damn it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely